Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck. Today I'm coming to you from over by our Pioneer Cemetery. It's Tuesday, April 25th. And I decided to take the dog to a little bit different place to walk him today. So this neighborhood, there's some vacant land here. It makes a good place to walk the dog once in a while. And kind of thought I'd make a video over at this location. Maybe give you a little bit of history, and I'm going to talk about a guy that was a volunteer firefighter for me for many years. But the cemetery's been here since 1882. It's located in the southwest part of town, a long ways from the commercial area, so it's real peaceful out here. And the first guy that was actually buried here was a guy named John Meadows, and John Meadows was killed by a group of renegade Indians off the San Carlos Apache Reservation in 1882. And now it's run by a board, and you have to be a resident here quite a number of years before you're eligible to be buried here. There's another cemetery clear on the other side of town, and that's where the newcomers can be buried at. But you got to be here a long time to qualify to be buried here. And as long as I've lived here in town, I knew quite a few people that are here now. But I'm going to tell you about one of them, and let me get over here where I can talk to you. Hopefully I got that backdrop right. It's a little windy today. I was going to try to do this outside, but a lot of times it's windy here in April, and it's windy enough here today. I think it'd be too windy on the microphone. The telephone microphones are pretty sensitive to wind noise. But the last service I went to at this cemetery was actually a number of years ago. I don't go to many funerals. I certainly don't even plan to go to my own if I can help it. But it was for a long time volunteer firefighter for me by the name of Bruce. And Bruce was he was a interesting guy to say the least, had a long background, but he ended up here and he ran a little one-man automotive machine shop. And he lived on the premises. And I mentioned before about our volunteer fire department that the guys who were the pillars of the community, they didn't participate in the fire department. So a lot of the folks that were with us were blue-collar type folks that ran businesses, and not necessarily the kind of guys that would hang out at the country club. And Bruce was one of those guys. He ran his little machine shop, and he always seemed like he took in way too much work that he could do. And so he's always behind on everything he was working on. And Bruce was one of those guys that only slept for like 4 hours a night. And he'd go to bed about 10 o'clock at night, and then he'd get up about 2, and he'd go out and work in his shop. And of course, in wintertime, his shop wasn't heated, so it was always cold, and he was always bundled up. And a lot of times, by the time I'd get to my office, I was fire chief, of course, and by the time I get to my office in the morning, Bruce was ready for a cup of coffee, and he knew there'd be hot coffee on at the fire station. But the other thing that Bruce would do is he'd get thinking about stuff out there all by himself and trying to work in that cold shop. And he'd get himself all worked up over something, and a lot of times it was just something minor. And so I'd come into the office, and 10 minutes later, here'd be Bruce, and he'd just be practically jumping up and down on my desk, ranting and raving about something. And it'd take me 20, 30 minutes to try to get him calmed down and tell him that, hey, a year from now, nobody will remember this even happened. It's not a big deal. You got a lot of people to be people, and yeah, there's a lot of things I don't agree with either, but it's kind of the way it is. And Bruce was a good guy. His heart was right in the community, and he was on the fire department for many years. And gradually, as he started getting older, he got to the point where, of course, he couldn't do that anymore. And when he finally passed away a few years ago, and I went to his funeral and had a graveside service here, and a lot of the old fire guys had been here for a long time, the old volunteers, a lot of us were here. And we did something that was I hadn't done before and I haven't done since. And after they said everything they were going to say and they lowered the casket down into the grave, they had we all got in a big line, and we all took a couple of shovels, and we all walked along, and we scooped up a shovel full of dirt and we helped bury old Bruce and fill the grave back in, and that was kind of that. And it was, like I say, I'd never done that before, and Bruce was a good guy, like all of us. He had his faults, but he served the community for many, many years. Kind of like a big daddy figure, kind of a little bit larger than life, chewing on a cigar all the time, and kind of a booming voice. But you could always guarantee that if there was something that was causing a burr in his saddle, he certainly wasn't shy about coming over and telling the chief about it. So I thought you might be interested in that little story. I'm not going to keep you very much longer. It's a nice day, even though it is a bit windy. Spring is here. All the trees are budding out. It's getting a little bit warmer. So I'll tell you a little bit about, sometime I'll tell you about that Indian uprising. It ended with the Battle of Big Dry Wash, and I'll take you up there sometime this summer, and we'll do a video up there, and I'll show you exactly where it happened and tell you about it. But it was the last major Indian uprising here before the Indian problem was declared solved, quote unquote. So for now, I'll let you go. And as I always tell you, take care of each other, love each other. It's a wonderful life, and we'll catch you on the next one. So for now, I'll just say peace out.